as you can see, they're constantly in motion 24/7. So they do require a bit of maintenance. They're very reliable, very trustworthy. I have one here laid out, kind of in exploded view fashion, to show you what's renewable. Okay? All these rocker arms, pins and links, speeder rod, ball arms, ball arm pins, ball arm toes can wear. This little thrust bearing cup is renewable. You can get a new ball head. These frames are available. And this bearing is renewable. This bearing works really hard. This bearing runs 24/7, usually about 2,000 RPM constant. This bearing you can get locally, but it is a special bearing. Normally not stocked by most bearing houses. We order it special. What is special about this bearing that most people don't realize is it's a KD style, and the cage that's in between the balls here is not brass, it's not steel like most ball bearings. It's a plastic material, and that's on purpose so it don't transfer heat, and that's what makes this bearing live longer than a bearing that would have of the same like and type that would have a steel or a brass cage separating the balls. I don't know if you even knew that. Okay, and so this is a little cutaway of a speed switch that we have. Okay, so basically if you're going to overhaul one of these babies, you inspect these little pins for wear, slop in the holes. This one is actually in pretty good shape, so I'll just quickly reassemble this fellow for you. First thing we want to do is put our ball arm back on. We got our little special handy dandy ball arm block. Okay, tap that in. Ball head goes in here. We got an outer race spacer and an inner race spacer. It's going to fit on here like this. This actually serves as a shield on this side of the bearing, because you'll notice this bearing is shielded on this side and not shielded on that side. So that kind of goes on like that.
Now, why wouldn't it just be beneficial to have it shielded on both sides?
Because we wanted to be able to grease it. That's why we get them without a shield on one side, so we can put our own grease that we like in there, okay? Otherwise they come not greased, they come oiled. Okay? If you ever notice when we get them, they just got oil in them, they don't have grease. And we got that little hootenanny, the guy squirts some hootenanny, is a favorite of mine, by the way. Little hootenanny that squirts some grease in there. Now, for some reason, bearings hung up a little bit.
You can squeeze on in.
Had that one in the wrong spot. Now it should fit.
What this is called? Now, why do you have
This is a mechanical speed switch.
Why would you have the outer one and the inside the outer race spacer?
It had to do with the fact that years ago they used a wider bearing, and when they went to this style bearing it was narrower. So they didn't want to change the design of this bracket so they would stay universal. So they just added a spacer that you could use it with or without the spacer. Okay. Finally, we got that bearing stuffed in that bore. And now comes the tricky part. So we don't want this to fly off into the wild blue yonder, but I'll be very careful.
And that's retaining spring?
That's the retaining snap ring.
Snap ring.
And I'm living right because it fell right into place. Now there's a bearing lock nut. For today's purposes, I'm only going to make it hand tight. And there's the bearing lock nut, which should have been put on first. So we turn that into a teaching moment. Okay, you can tap and just tighten that up. Don't tighten it too much, otherwise it's too hard to get apart next time. And then fold the tab over, and it prevents it from flying apart. Okay, so our bottom end is done. The next part is our lower speeder rod and upper speeder rod. And this pin is renewable if you needed to knock it out, but we can feel this one's nice and tight. Here's our thrust bearing assembly. This is going to ride against the ball arm toes. And this fits on here like Yogi. And this all goes down in here. Into the bushing. The next part is our spring. And this is the spring plug, known as part number 110165.
And the thrust bearing was
111006.
Yeah, what's the bearing number?
Which is 111005 and 180179.
There you have it.
She'll go head to head with you all day.
It sells for $116 as a set. Now, before you go to overhaul a speed switch, the trick is to, when you get done, so that your switch will trip at the same setting, because the setting is determined by the compression on this spring, you want to record where this plug is at. Now, I would call this one flush, okay? But sometimes they're down in here. Like if you look at that one, it's down probably 1/16 of an inch. Take a measurement. So you can count turns from flush, okay?
But you want it flush, right?
No, you want it to go where it was when you found it.
Yeah.
Like if this was down 1/4 of an inch and you measured it with one of your new American Governor scales,
Right.
you'd want to return it to that spot, because then you'll have the proper compression on the spring, and because as you change the spring tension with that plug, it changes the trip point.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep. So you should always measure prior to.
Disassembling. There you go. This is a lock nut that clamps the spring plug. And on the top end, we have a rocker arm.
She does.
Rocker arm pin. And John Strow. Here, finally we had a customer show up. You know, John's working for Hydro 911 now.
Yep.
He's like the rest of us. He's just moving around. So there you have it. The upper end is done. You would bolt your mercury switches and your terminal block back on, and you're ready to go.
Easy peasy.
There you have it. One speed switch overhaul.
Very nice.